She was one of the 400 dogs hoarded in that public pound, which basically worked like a concentration camp for unwanted dogs run by the state. The first time I remember noticing her was that Tuesday morning on February 22nd, 2022. As we were waiting outside for the municipality to obey the court order and come open up the gate, among the hundreds of dogs, I saw her lying there, chained next to a doghouse in the front yard. 2 days before that, we had spent a couple of hours there gathering as much footage as possible for the lawsuit we would file the next day. There were 2 dead dogs we had seen then, that by Tuesday they had been removed, so I figured that she was one of the many who had died in that hell on earth. There's another one who's died, I told Irini, who was beside me, and she replied, no, this one is alive, it's breathing. Eventually we got the keys and opened the gates, and for the next hours we would select, document and remove the dogs that needed urgent medical attention. She was one of them. We found her inside the doghouse. She was in there asleep, completely uninterested in what was going on. Most dogs were going crazy, having so many people around all of a sudden come and go, but she was just in her own world. We woke her up, removed the stupid chain she had on for years and carried her out. Again, she was uninterested. I didn't know what to make of her, if I'm being honest. She seemed emotionless, lifeless, in a way. One thing I noticed was that she was small and felt light as a feather, and at some point she must have been really fluffy. We continued the rescue, and I caught one last glimpse of her right before we left. It was getting dark, and she was in the crate in the back of the van. Same expression. Actually, no expression. I had the same feeling about her when I saw her the next day at our shelter. Didn't know what to make of her. She was quiet, and she seemed so uninterested to the point where I stayed away from her. She just wouldn't give away anything, and although she looked extremely fragile, there was something about her that made you think she wasn't really that fragile. As if she had something inside that would blow up given the chance. But one thing I did see was her eyes. She had the most beautiful, wide, wet eyes, and at that moment, looking at her eyes, I named her Alma, the Spanish word for soul. Alma was elderly, emaciated, with mange, and underneath her fluffy, matted coat, we could feel a huge tumor in her neck. Only a couple of days after she came to us, she collapsed, and it was only when we shaved her that we realized that the tumor was twice the size of her head. And as she was, old, emaciated, and with mange and wounds all over her tiny, fragile body, she had to undergo surgery. Now, what appeared to be a tumor was not a tumor. It was pus and fluids surrounding a piece of tooth that was left in her neck from a dog bite years ago. She spent weeks in the clinic. With the tooth removed and the infection subsiding, she started feeling better. As the days went on, her neck would heal, and as that swollen bulb in her neck was disappearing, so was her hair. She couldn't be treated for mange yet, so she was bound to look worse before she could look better. And it was then, during those days, when she was more hairless than she was when she had come, skinny and exposed, that I think I finally caught a glimpse of her soul for the first time, as she was trotting in the garden like a little fragile princess from a fallen kingdom. I saw for the first time all her grace, all her will to live, and all her strength, disguised as weakness. It was around that time when we discovered her background, her story before the story we already knew. Someone from the area where she lived sent us photos of her as a stray on the streets. Fluffy and tiny and sweet and healthy as she was rescued by the local authorities, only to be thrown in that dungeon they called a shelter, and to be left chained there for 3 long years, with the tumor killing her slowly, the mange eating her up, the starvation exhausting her, and the neglect forcing her to give up on life. What a crime. How immoral is it to do that to a dog, to any dog, but especially to her? We knew now how she was supposed to look once she recovered from mange and gained weight. So when she moved to the shelter again, 2 more free and a bit stronger, patches of new hair had already started growing back. She looked as if she had been freed of a huge burden. The burden of dead, matted hair and of that huge weight underneath her neck, but basically the burden of her past, as if a shell was cracked open and she emerged all brand new and light. By then I had stopped waiting for some weird character flaw to suddenly emerge out of her. She didn't have any flaws, apparently. She wasn't hiding anything. She wasn't some mystery to unravel. This was who that dog actually was. A calm, tender, easygoing soul that would just accept her fate no matter where she was and what she had to deal with. After all she had been through, I started focusing less on how fragile she looked and more on how strong she actually was. The months passed and her hair started growing longer and longer. But the kindness of her face and her beautiful eyes was what you would notice every time you laid eyes on her. She had this need to be next to humans, to feel a human touch. When I saw how tender she really was, I realized how horrible she must have been feeling during those first days when she was indifferent to any kind of human contact. And that gave me a feeling of deep sorrow. It was then, when I saw her getting better, that I started feeling sorry for what she had been through. It was when it was finally clear what this dog needed that I realized what she had been deprived of. It was around that time when she had to undergo a second surgery. Yet another tumor in her armpit, yet another cancer scare that again was not cancer, but another piece of tooth stuck there that had created an infected mass around. She came out a winner, again, for the second time, and her hair started growing even longer. And if we had to choose one and only dog we had a soft spot for, it would be her. She would roam around in the shelter looking for some affection, and when things got too hectic, with too many dogs pushing her around, she would go into the office and lay there on the sofa. For months now I had been wanting to foster an elderly dog, and one day, without even thinking about it too much, I just put her in the car and drove away. In a way, she was still a mystery. Deep inside, I was expecting something to be revealed about her, something that could only be revealed once she was in a home. It's just I stopped thinking that this revelation would be anything scary. She basically slept for the first 2 weeks. She would take short walks, eat and sleep. Having lived for years the way she did, 2 weeks isn't really a long time. Once she got enough rest, she started being a bit more present around the house, and basically she started living only for me. She would look at me, follow me around, sit next to me, and became an extension of myself. She found a human to attach to, and that's what she did. It took a couple of months to have her settle in 100%, especially concerning her toilet routine. But I don't want to talk about that too much. What basically happened was that with the daily routine came the trust that she would get her walk every day no matter what, and with trust came an understanding. And as she started trusting me, I started trusting her, and now she is house trained. There's so much I want to say about this dog, but so few things I can actually put into words. She's fluffy. By now she's reached her full fluffiness, I think, and that makes her exceptionally cute. Especially those 2 tufts in her 2 hind legs that people say I should cut off, but I would never, because those are her wings. And as she trots around, I imagine that it's those 2 tufts that give her the strength to do it. Apart from her eyes that become double the size when food is around, she awakes, and a slight tail wag a couple of times a day, she basically has no highs and lows. She's sort of flat. Or that's what it looks like. And that makes me laugh, and we joke about it a lot. Every dog has the right to be laughed at, no matter what they've been through. This should be the ultimate goal to reach for any rescue, to overcome everything life has thrown at you and become a reason someone laughs, like normal dogs are being laughed at by their normal dog owners. So her poker face is what we laugh at. No matter what's going on, she gives nothing away. Nothing. That is a skill. Walk, sit, stay, have a shower, dry out after a walk in the rain, sit here and there and everywhere, have guests over, not have guests over, have a cut in your face or not. Alma is the same. Straight face. She moves in the same rhythm, looks in the same way and reacts in the same manner. That feeling I had with this dog from the beginning, that she had something inside she was hiding, something she wouldn't reveal, finally became clear. She wasn't hiding anything. Or actually, no. She was hiding something. She was hiding it in plain sight. The ace up her sleeve was this straight face and straight attitude that made you always wonder if there's something to be expected. That's what kept her alive in hell. That's what made her survive when she was one of the weakest around. That mystery around her attitude that always made you a bit wary. After living with her for about 6 months now, I've come to realize that this is her strength. This is what kept her going, what kept her alive, and actually what kept her strong when she appeared weak. Laying low and adjusting without revealing nothing. This is what made her adjust in that public pound, and then the clinic, then our shelter, then my home and my 2 dogs and 3 cats. This is what made her follow us on a 2-hour walk up the mountain without ever panting or falling behind. She doesn't waste her energy in nothing. She keeps it inside and she transforms it into a living force. Sometimes when she's fast asleep, I go back to that first time I noticed her, lying there chained and miserable. And I mentally hugged that dog from a year ago, whispering in her ear that better days are coming. And although she looks at me as if all she has in her life is me, as if she can't live without me, I know that she would. She would survive without me. She would survive any situation you would throw her at again and again. And for that, I admire her greatly. And I can live with this dog without ever feeling sorry for the years she's lost.
Bravo, Almaki! Bravo, Almaki! You're using your brain! Bravo, Almaki! Bravo, Almaki!